It's over, the deed is done, I can finally rest. But not before finishing this video, which will cover everything you didn't see on camera. If you're new to my channel, hi there, my name is Jeric. I went on a trip to Japan back in May, and I just finished releasing all of my vlog content that I shot while I was there. I didn't mean for it to take 6 months to release, it just sort of ended up happening that way. But what matters is that they are finally out for you to watch, and you can find links to all 4 vlogs in the description below. You can also find more vlog content on my Instagram and TikTok. I'm still new to producing short form content, so apologies in advance if it looks kind of scuffed. So before I talk about the stuff that was cut from the vlogs, I think it'd be good for me to be transparent with you guys about how much I spent while I was there. I converted everything to USD using the approximate exchange rate at the time, so these prices might fluctuate for you a bit in the future. So first things first, plane tickets. I flew out of MSN in Madison, Wisconsin, had a layover at Chicago O'Hare, and from there flew into Tokyo Haneda Airport. I took the same route going home, and in total flights cost me around $1,700. Realistically though, if you're flying out of a major US airport unlike me, I'd expect you to spend somewhere between maybe $1,100 and $1,500 depending on where you're flying from. If possible, always try to fly into Haneda because it's much closer to central Tokyo than Narita. Narita is about an hour east of central Tokyo, while Haneda is only about 30 minutes south. The hotel. For a 4-star hotel in Shinagawa for 8 nights and 3 people, I spent roughly $1,600, but I split that cost with my mom, who paid for half of it, so I actually spent only about $800. If you're a solo traveler, I recommend reserving an Airbnb given how a lot of things are within walking distance in Tokyo, and there's a Family Mart, 7-Eleven, or Lawson at every corner. But if you're traveling with friends or family, it's probably more optimal to book a traditional hotel. While credit cards are definitely accepted in most establishments in Japan, there are some businesses that do cash only, like the cafe I went to when I was in Asakusa. And that becomes more common the further out you go from central Tokyo. Given this is the case, I recommend withdrawing 10,000 yen for every day you're in Japan. You won't necessarily spend it all, but it should cover the more lucrative purchases like souvenirs and dining out. I withdrew 80,000 yen in total, which was about $570 at the time, and spent about $7 in debit card fees. Next up, souvenirs. But before I break down everything I bought, I highly recommend buying a second suitcase while you're in Japan. United allows passengers to check in 2 luggages for free if they're flying over the Pacific, so check in with your airline beforehand to see if they have a similar policy. And another thing, if you're shopping at Akihabara or Nakano Broadway, you might see some merchandise in multiple shops for varying prices, and that's because some items are secondhand while others are new and unopened. The secondhand figures I saw were in pretty good condition, so don't be afraid to hold out before deciding to buy anything. For example, I spent $31 on this figure of Anya and Bond from Spy Family, only to find it much cheaper at another store I went to. Same thing goes for this $25 figure of Chisato from the anime Licorice Recoil. This is Jeric of the future coming at you with another piece of merch that I neglected to mention when I was filming this segment, and it's this mug with Bocchi the Rock imagery on it. It has Bocchi, Nijika, Ryo, and Kita. I bought this in Akihabara for $11. Plushies of the main cast of Bocchi the Rock and a keychain plush of Hoshino Ai from the anime Oshinoko. In total, this cost me $112. And before you ask, no, I don't have buyer's remorse. Moving on to the manga I bought at Nakano Broadway and Anime Ikebukuro, all 8 of these books in front of me cost $42. Even by Japanese standards, manga was surprisingly pretty cheap. Each of these books cost around $3 to $5, and in the US, it would probably cost you double that at Barnes & Noble. Thrifting in Shimokitazawa cost me around $25 total, which actually includes this purple shirt that I'm wearing and a blue shirt that's currently in my closet. At Uniqlo, I spent around $175 on new shirts, new jeans, and a new set of pajamas. And just like my thrifted blue shirt, they are also in my closet, and I am too lazy to bring them all out. These strawberry cheesecake flavored Kit Kats were $5. Don't worry, I still have 3 more months before they're set to expire. I spent $70 on random shit at Daiso, which includes this wireless charging mousepad smartphone holder, a waterproof smartphone case and accompanying lanyard, a hairbrush, some small bath hooks, a cable organizer for my desk and workstation, and a metallic tablecloth. If you're looking for high quality gifts for friends and family at an affordable price, Daiso is definitely the place to go. Now, I bought these last 2 souvenirs at places that didn't make it into a vlog or a short, which I'll explain and talk about later. I bought this plushie of Totoro from the Studio Ghibli Museum for $27, and I bought this plushie of one of my favorite Pokemon, Gastrodon, from the Tokyo Skytree Pokemon Center for $11. So in total, I spent around $534 on souvenirs. I also have the prices for the attractions I went to. The main cafe in Akihabara was $28 and is probably the only thing that I felt was a little overpriced. But like I said in my vlog, you pay for the experience, not the food. A ticket to the Idol concert in Shimokitazawa was $4 at the door. A day pass for the Kowakian Unison Resort in Hakone was $11. One adult ticket for Team Lab Planets was $23. And for Shibuya Sky, the Ginza Art Aquarium and Tokyo Skytree, I bought a tourist pass from this reputable company called Klook. Basically, they bundle a bunch of popular attractions for different cities into a single package, and they sell you that package at a discounted price, which ends up being a lot cheaper than buying the tickets individually. For me, that pass cost $68. And if you add everything together, I spent roughly $3,745 on this 8-day trip. So with that out of the way, let's talk about the stuff that didn't make it into the vlog, starting with Monday, May 22nd. So in my second vlog at 5 minutes and 52 seconds, there's a moment where I discover, quote unquote, the real Sensoji, which I can understand can be confusing to some people because literally 2 minutes earlier, I say, I already arrived at Sensoji, so which one is it?
This is, I actually think this is the real Sensoji. Considering how many more people are here to take pictures, I'm pretty sure this is what everyone wants to see.
At 3 minutes and 47 seconds, what I actually saw was Kaminarimon, the outer of 2 large entrance gates that ultimately leads to Sensoji. This is Kaminarimon, this is Sensoji. Hopefully that eliminates the confusion. Before I went to the Radio Kaikon building, I actually visited Atri Akihabara, which is a shopping mall that supposedly had a Hololive pop-up event happening. Unfortunately, there was no pop-up event to be found, and when I looked it up online, it turned out that I missed it by literally 1 day, so I scrapped all the footage of that excursion. On Tuesday the 23rd, there were a couple of shots where I looked like I was bleeding from my neck area, like right about here. And that's because I cut myself shaving that morning like I often do, and I didn't notice until I watched the footage back at the end of the day. Believe it or not, the 2 idol groups that performed at Shelter actually disbanded since I shot that footage. The first group, Filmy Tracks, formed in December 2022. They announced their disbandment in April 2023, and they completely dissolved on June 2nd. They lasted only 6 months, which I suppose is a testament to how ruthless the idol industry is in Japan. Perhaps Oshinoko wasn't too far off after all. The second group was called A Lot of Love. They were formed in March 2022, announced their disbandment in August 2023, and they completely dissolved on September 29th. Now, they might have lasted longer than Filmy Tracks at 18 months, but the group was a revolving door of members, ultimately disbanding with 3 remaining. I didn't include this in the vlog, but on Instagram and TikTok, I published a photo of me taken with one of the idols, which took a little bit of Japanese finessing to get to happen. I spoke to one of the Shelter staff members, and he told me that first-timers were able to take a Polaroid picture with one of the idols for free. I got my ticket, I walked up to one of the idols. She didn't really speak English. I could only speak in broken Japanese, but with the limited knowledge we had of each other's languages, I think we got our messages across. And that's really the only thing you can hope for when you're studying a foreign language. Wednesday the 24th was the day I took a day trip to Hakone. After I experienced the Mori no Yu, I was planning on visiting Lake Ashi to try and get a glimpse of Mount Fuji, but I ended up waiting 90 minutes for the next bus to take me back to Odawara instead. The public transportation options were very limited, and the taxi app that Google Maps recommended I download wasn't working on my phone, so that was very unfortunate, and as a result, I cut out any mention of Lake Ashi since I never actually visited it. I explained this in the vlog, but there was a duo of singers that go by the name of Ron's Week that were performing in Shinjuku as I was making my way to dinner. They were really good live. I spoke to them afterwards and tried to get a selfie with them, but with how much Japanese people value their online privacy as well as their public image, it was an immediate no from them. Thursday through Monday were more subdued in terms of footage I shot, and as a result, I put out short form content instead of full-fledged vlogs on my social media. It was mostly because my mom and my sister arrived in Tokyo on Wednesday night, and so I spent most of my time with them, not really getting many opportunities to film content for myself. I made the visit to Shimokitazawa seem much shorter than it actually was, but we did get to go to the different thrift shops in the area. I even found a store that was selling Rutgers football and Rutgers wrestling t-shirts, which I found really bizarre. I really want to know the story behind how those shirts got there, but I guess it'll just remain a mystery. And then in the evening, we went up to Shibuya Sky, timing it perfectly for when the sun set. But while you might get some great pictures while you're up there, please do yourself a favor and wear pants and long sleeves, because with how windy it gets up there on that observation deck, it can get really cold really quickly. I was freezing my ass off in shorts and a short sleeve shirt, so please learn from my mistakes. On Friday, I visited the Toyosu Fish Market. Again, like I said on Instagram and TikTok, unless you're willing to wake up very early, visit Tsukiji Fish Market over Toyosu. Yes, they might have relocated the fish market, but chances are you'll have more to do and eat at the Tsukiji Fish Market than you'll have in Toyosu. Hi, this is Jeric from the future, here to tell you that somehow I lost the footage of this part of the video. So basically, my mom, sister, and I actually had reservations at the Unko Museum, which according to Google is, quote, a fantastic rainbow-colored entertainment space with poop-themed art and goods, games, and interactivity, but due to time constraints, we had to forgo it. So that's the context for you. The Unko Museum was actually the 4th attraction attached to our Fluke passes, so that was a bit of wasted money there. And while I was shopping at Uniqlo in Ginza, there was apparently an earthquake, but I didn't feel it at the time. The only reason why I knew this at the time was because a friend of mine who was also visiting Tokyo and isn't named Hanbon had his train delayed from Narita Airport to the city center because of the quake, and he was closer to the epicenter. I've only experienced one earthquake in my lifetime, so that was kind of wild. I think I covered everything I did on Saturday when I visited Kamakura. I think the only thing I wish I did if I had more time in my day was to visit Enoshima Beach. Not only because it's a landmark location in Bochi the Rock, but just in general, it looks very beautiful. I especially would have loved to have seen the view from the Enoshima Sea Candle. For Sunday and Monday, I didn't post any videos. I actually barely had any to begin with, but I'll probably post photos by the time this video goes up. On Sunday, I visited the Ghibli Museum in Mitaka, which is located in the western part of Tokyo. Tickets to the Ghibli Museum are actually very difficult to get. Like, I'm talking Taylor Swift Eras Tour difficult. They only go on sale on the 10th of each month at 10 a.m. JST for reservations made the following month. So for example, in my case, I wanted to go in May, so I had to set my alarm for 8 p.m. Central Time on April 9th. The website also isn't the best design and is really prone to crashing, so expect to refresh your page several times before you get through. No photography or video of the inside is allowed, but you are able to take pictures outside and of the exterior of the building. It's mainly to preserve the magic and appeal of the museum, which I totally understand. For 1,000 yen, it's so worth it. Plus, there's a special screening of a 15-minute Ghibli short featuring characters from My Neighbor Totoro. Look, I might have given Totoro a 7 out of 10, but sitting in the front row of that theater watching that short, I was feeling all sorts of emotions. There wasn't anything particularly sad-inducing, but for some reason I couldn't stop tearing up. So after the Ghibli Museum, while my mom and my sister went to Asakusa, I actually went back to Shimokitazawa to take pictures at Bochi the Rock locations with all 4 members of Kesoku Band instead of just Bochi. I knew I was going to regret it if I didn't take pictures with all 4 members of Kesoku Band at the locations I went to on Thursday, so I had to go back. Then in the evening, I reunited with my family at Tokyo Skytree and happened to run into the Pokemon Center before my reservation. I really wanted to visit the Pokemon Center at the Sunshine City Mall while I was in Ikebukuro on Tuesday, but I really didn't want to give up my chance of visiting Shelter and watching the 2 idol groups perform, so this made up for it. So after Tokyo Skytree, my family and I had dinner at a Taiwanese night market that was happening on the ground level. And it turned out that it was actually the last night of the festival and they served up some really good food. Monday the 29th was the last day of my trip. My flight wasn't until 5 p.m. So my family and I decided to visit some of the places that didn't quite fit into our itinerary. This includes Tokyo Tower, where I had Moss Burger for lunch and ran into a film shoot for a Japanese comedy duo called Chocolate Planet. At first, I didn't know who it was, so I assumed it was Hajime Shacho, the most subscribed YouTuber in Japan. But someone managed to correct me while also telling me to, stop filming them. And that's basically it. So now I'm gonna talk about things I miss about Japan now that I'm back home. The first thing I'll miss isn't necessarily tied to Japan, but it's getting to travel by myself. Solo traveling is so much fun. I highly recommend you do it at least once in your lifetime. This was the second time I flew someplace by myself and first time international. Not only is it a great way to obtain travel vlog content, but the ability to be spontaneous in a country that you've never been before is unlike anything I've ever experienced. I think I stuck to my itinerary like maybe 75% of the time. I'd love to do something like this again in either Japan or another country. Number 2 is public transportation. The Tokyo Metro is probably my favorite train network that I've been on just because of how reliable it is. Sure, it might get packed or crowded during peak hours, but it's nothing I haven't experienced before in New York City. Plus, there's reliable air conditioning. The signage and announcements are available in English, so that definitely helps. And Google Maps makes it extremely easy to navigate the different train lines. It even tells you what cars are the least crowded and where to board. I only got lost once, and that was when I arrived at Shinjuku Station, but let's be real, who doesn't get lost when they get to Shinjuku Station? Number 3 is that everything is cheap according to American living standards. Your US dollar will go a long way while you're in Japan, which might be good for tourists, but it got me thinking about the reality of the Japanese economy and how wages are barely increasing to keep up with the rate of inflation. If you're watching this video around the time I upload it, you can quickly find the approximate cost in USD for any item in yen if you multiply the price by either 0.67 or divide the total cost by 148. And the last thing about Japan I'll miss is its well-mannered citizens. I'm sure we've all met a handful of people in our lives who've gone above and beyond to help us out, but Japan's hospitality is on another level. For example, when I was shopping at Uniqlo, I was carrying a ton of shirts and pairs of pants on me when a staff member approached me with a bag to hold everything. Now keep in mind, they didn't ask me if I needed a bag. No, they gave me one directly. I've never experienced this before shopping in American retail. When I was on a crowded bus in Kamakura, a woman offered her seat to a mother's child who may or may not have been injured. I'm not exactly sure, I don't remember. The mother initially refused, but after the offering woman insisted, the mother told her child to take a seat. You rarely see this stuff at home where people normally keep their heads down and mind their own business, so I really appreciated the vibe shift while I was there. So next, this video wouldn't be complete if I didn't have any regrets. I think my biggest regret looking back on everything is not allocating enough time to shopping, namely while I was in Akihabara and at Daiso. I wasn't expecting to be hung up just staring at everything, but I guess that's to be expected when everything is just so new to you and it's stuff you wouldn't normally see in like a hobby shop in America. Oh, and Don Quixote. I definitely regret not going there, but maybe it was for the better because I feel like I would have spent a lot more time there than I did at Daiso, so who knows, maybe it was for the better. On top of that, I really wish I went to more parks, especially when the weather was so nice while I was there. I was in Tokyo right before the start of Japan's rainy season, so it was like the perfect arrival and departure for me. Last point isn't so much of a regret, more so something I wish I knew before arriving. A lot of public places tend to open very late and close extremely early. It's nothing like the US where places open at like 6 or 7 a.m. and close around 8 or 9 p.m. I don't think any place I visited opened before 10 or closed after 6, except for maybe some restaurants. Had I known that, I probably would have scaled back my itinerary a bit. Tips and advice. I've already sprinkled a couple here and there throughout this video, but if you've never been to Japan before and are thinking of going soon, pay close attention to what I have to say in this part of the video. The best times to visit are between March and May since it's peak cherry blossom season, but if you're looking for some off-peak times to visit, October and November are good months as well. Now you might be wondering why I specifically left out the summer months, and while there's certainly a lot going on in Japan over the summer, there are a couple of good reasons why you might not want to visit them. For one, it's the busiest time for foreigners to visit the country, so I'd expect flight prices to be inflated due to high demand. Summer is also particularly brutal in Japan because of the humidity. If you live in some place like Southern California, Arizona, or Nevada, you might be used to it, but from the secondhand reports I've read and seen online, it's pretty bad. Last reason I have is Japan's rainy season I mentioned earlier, which typically occurs from early June to mid-July. If you're dead set on visiting Japan in the summertime or just have no better option, try planning your visit around mid-July or August because if you come any earlier, you probably won't have the greatest weather. For people who own iPhones, I recommend getting a digital Suica card in your Apple Wallet over a physical one because you'll be refilling that thing a lot. In total, I spent just under $100 on train rides and buses, which doesn't include the Shinkansen I rode from Shinagawa to Odawara and back, which was a $52 round trip. Should you wear a mask, yes or no? I'm gonna say this one's gonna be up to you and your comfort level. People don't seem to mind if you're not wearing a mask with the influx of foreigners in the country. For me personally, I wore a mask only when I was on the metro because everyone else around me was wearing them. If you do your research, you'll probably see people talk about the lack of public trash bins in Japan, which I can't confirm is true, but I don't think it was as big of a problem as people made it out to be. I brought plastic bags from home in anticipation of this, and I only used one the entire trip. If anything, you can just use the plastic bags that you get from the kombini, you know, your 7-Eleven, your Family Marts, etc. It might be inconvenient, but it's not really a big deal. This one's not so much of a tip, more so something that I probably would have done in hindsight with more time. and that would be to make a Japanese friend. Now you might think that'd be difficult, but with social apps like HelloTalk geared specifically towards people who are learning languages and want to speak to someone who natively knows the language, I think it'd be super cool to meet up with a language partner and have them give you a personalized tour of the country. Now, to be fair, I might be romanticizing this idea just a little bit, but when I was in Kamakura, I overheard this Canadian guy speaking to this Japanese girl he was with. She was trying to speak English to him while he was trying to speak Japanese to her. That being said, even if you don't have a Japanese language partner, it's still useful to know a few phrases here and there to help you out. You might stumble a bit speaking to locals like I did a handful of times in my vlogs, but even a small amount of effort to speak the language should be enough to get your message across. At minimum, I think you should study phrases that you commonly use in restaurants because you'll probably spend the most time interacting with locals in those settings. The last tip I have is probably the most important. If there's anything to take away from this video, this is probably it. Invest in a good pair of walking shoes. I closed all my rings on my Apple Watch every day I was in Japan and averaged roughly 16,000 steps per day, which was 4 times my normal pace. Yes, Tokyo has a robust public transportation network, but you gotta keep in mind, the city is huge, guys. Like, it's nothing like New York, where I was maybe a 5-minute walk max away from a subway station. Okay, this last part of the video is about my future travel plans and how it relates to Japan. 8 days is definitely not enough time to cover the entire country, so the next time I visit, I'll definitely want to stay for 2 weeks minimum. Me personally, I'd love to visit the cities of Kyoto, Osaka, Fukuoka, Sapporo, and Okinawa. They each have their own cultural identity, so I'd love to see what they have to offer. Now, this might be strange coming from an introvert like me, but I don't know, man. I'm kind of interested in experiencing the clubbing scene in Tokyo with a friend or two. Says the guy who's never been clubbing before and has had 2 drinks in his entire life. But the TikToks I've seen and the secondhand experiences have gotten me curious. I definitely want to get back into studying Japanese in 2024 with the goal of eventually passing JLPT3. And for anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's the Japanese language proficiency test for non-native speakers. There are 5 levels to choose from, 5 being the easiest and 1 being the hardest. Typically, people who take the JLPT are trying to get JLPT 1 or 2 certified in order to work for a Japanese company. Right now, I don't plan on taking the test for ambitions as extreme as those, but I think setting the bar at JLPT3 is what'll keep me motivated to learn the language at a comprehensive level. I have other aspirations when it comes to Japan, but I think I'll keep those to myself for now until I actually start to feel like I'm making progress in my language learning journey. And that brings us to the end of this video. I definitely rambled on longer than I would have liked, but filming this video has sort of opened my mind up to what's possible for me in the near future, and I just wanted to share my excitement with you all. Hopefully you learned a thing or two from watching or listening to my experiences in Japan. I hope my travels inspire you to plan a trip of your own. Leave a comment down below if there's a topic that I didn't cover in this video, or tag me on social media. Links are down in the description. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I will catch you in the next one.